see if I can do this. Oh God, I need an assistant. I need an assistant. Ugh. Hey guys, what's up? Serena Appiah here from thriftdiving.com. Let me tell you, I have two weaknesses. Well, three if you count chocolate. Number one, I love card catalogs. And number two, I freaking love drafting tables. Well, guess what? We have a drafting table here that we're gonna make over today. I found it at the thrift store for $40. Guys, this thing is rock solid. It is so heavy and it's just perfect for putting power tools on there. So today we're gonna convert this into a workstation and we're gonna remove the top. So let's go ahead and get started because I cannot tell you. Oh, guess what? We're also gonna put some wheels on the bottom. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm really excited. I thought this drafting table hardware was really cool. You know, I kind of didn't want to remove it, but considering that I'm going to have tools on top of this table, it really needed to come off. So I went ahead and unscrewed it, popped it off, and I'll be able to hopefully save it for another project, maybe something that I build from scratch. Okay, so that was easy removing the top. Now that we've removed the top, we can set this thing aside, we can turn it over, remove those black caps from the feet, and then wipe it down. These metal black things on the legs, they reminded me of hooves, and they were ugly. And some of them came off pretty easily. I just had to unscrew them. There were a couple that they were a little bit more difficult to come off, so I had to get out the hammer, had to get out the flathead and just tap those babies off. But for the most part, they came off pretty easily. But this is where this project got really interesting. So I started sanding the legs just because they were a little rough around where those black caps were. And I just started sanding the whole leg. And before you know it, I had this beautiful piece of solid oak with this grain that was just amazing. And here it was hiding under this 1980s, 1990s yellow stain. And I thought, you know what, if I strip this, if I sand it, I bet you it could be beautiful. So that's what I did. I pulled out my Orbit sander. I did a little test area just to see, okay, what's this going to look like if I remove this stain? And let me tell you, it was beautiful. So this project has taken a complete 180-degree turn, guys. Instead of painting this and putting galvanized steel on top, I decided I'm going to bring it back to its natural beauty. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to strip it, sand it, and then I think we're just going to leave it natural and put some cool legs on the bottom, some wheels, some really cool like little orange wheels. So I guess that's what we're going to do. Let's do it. When you're stripping, make sure you're using your chemical resistant gloves. It's not the same as these gloves. We're gonna use these gloves. We're gonna double up. How about that? To strip this table, I put a really thick coat of environmentally friendly stripper. If you want the link to that, just go down in the description. All the materials are listed there in the link. But I went ahead and put a really thick coat. I let it sit for about 10 minutes and then I scraped it off. Here's the thing, make sure that your putty knife is not sharp. Otherwise, you could gouge your wood. That's not good. So just use a piece of sandpaper and dull those edges. Now, you want to make sure that you've got a box or maybe a milk container, something that you could offload all that gunk that you're going to get on your putty knife into the box. Scrape it away. And you'll probably want to do 2 coats. In this case, I did need to do 2 coats. So I slathered on another thick coat, let it sit for a couple minutes. I went ahead and worked in sections and did the other sides. But make sure you have something underneath of your project if you're stripping, because I guarantee it will drip onto the floor. You don't want to ruin your floors or your garage floors. And when I was done stripping, I used after wash to get all of the residue off of the wood before I sand it. Okay, so we are on day 2 of this project, guys. Not because it takes that long, but just because we ran out of time. So we already stripped off all of the finish. It needs a good sanding. So we're gonna start with probably about 150 grit sandpaper and then work our way to the really fine, smooth 220. And we're just gonna leave this baby natural. So let me point one thing out to you. Whoever created this table did a really great job with putting some white grain filler in here. It looks amazing. I mean, I love the highlighted look of the grain, and we don't have to do anything but just put a nice top coat and seal this baby, and then put some casters on the bottom, and we have a new workstation. We actually have to put some wood filler into these holes. So to make the DIY wood filler, I usually just keep some sawdust from, another oak project that I did. And I just mix together the glue and the sawdust and then just fill it. One thing to keep in mind, if you are going to make DIY wood filler, if you are staining your project, this isn't going to work because it's not going to accept the stain. So I would stick with the ready-made fillers if you are going to stain. If you're leaving it natural or painting, then by all means, go with the sawdust. It will work. So these hollow caster wheels, these are one of my favorite parts of this project. They're from a company called Mocket. I happened to meet them several months ago at a builder's show, and they agreed to send me some to try out for my project. And I'm telling you, absolutely love them. Super cute. So once the DIY wood filler was all dry, it was time to smooth this top. Now what I do usually is I take a pencil, put some marks on there, and that really tells me when it's time to move from one grit of sandpaper to the next. When all the lines are gone, then it's time to move on. And you can see that, the sandpaper cuts right through the DIY wood filler, and it left it just nice and smooth. It blended in because it was the same color, and it's not that noticeable. I think it blends in pretty good. And I went ahead and did the sides, finished off the body, changed the sandpaper from the 150 to the 220, added more lines to the table, and just gave it another nice smooth finish. So now that the top was smooth, I was ready to turn it over and drill the holes in the bottom for the casters. So I used a drill bit, 7/32. I think that's the piece that I used, and just marked where the casters were going to go. Took my drill and made sure that I didn't go too far in. I put a little tape so it just was a visual reminder of where to stop. And then I put the bottom piece on there, put some machine screws in there because those were some pretty fat ones I was able to find at Home Depot. I just drilled them in. And when I finished drilling all 4 in, I just gave it a little tug just to make sure that it was nice and tight. Some of the screws felt like they kept spinning a little, but overall, I think it'll be okay. It seemed like it was pretty tight. And then I was able to put some of the grease and then just pop that on and you'll hear the click. Yep, and it's good to go. And with all 4 casters in place, this baby was moving. I did not have to pick this up and hoist it. So definitely a win. So once the table was right side up, I did a final smoothing of the wood. I wiped it down with a tack cloth, and there were some little spots that still needed some sanding. So I fixed that up, used my tack cloth, got a bristle brush, got into those corners, dug it out, and moved forward. So this was another time in this project where things got really interesting. So I love liming wax. It's really great when you're working with oak and you can push that white wax into the grain to really highlight it. So I started doing that. I started experimenting with the liming wax, brushing it on, letting it dry, and using the soft wax from Annie Sloan to clean it off. And then I got this idea, well, what if I just put clear wax on? What's it going to look like? Look at that brown spot. That is not the 1980s look that I'm going for. So I totally had kind of ruined it. And because, I don't have scrap wood, I tested on my actual project and I hated it. So there I'm thinking, oh, I'll just use clear wax, and no, I hated the look of this brown wood. So guess what I ended up having to do? I ended up having to sand off the wax and just created even more mess for myself, even more work. So I decided to stick with my original idea and go with the liming wax, and I applied it against the grain, wiping it off, using clear wax to wipe it off. And you can see that it's laying in the grain, it's helping to bring out that beautiful grain. So I really liked the way it looked, and I went ahead and did the entire body. I did the top, the legs, the sides, and it was kind of a lot of work, but I think it turned out beautiful. So after applying the liming wax, I wanted to finish it off with a wax polish. A friend of mine told me about this brand. It's called Fides & Sons, and it works really good because you can see there like that beautiful shine. And I don't get those results when I use other waxes. So from now on, this is the only brand that I'm going to use to wax my furniture pieces. Okay, let's talk hardware. If I can reuse hardware, I'm going to use it. It saves me money. These were scratched up and busted up, so I took some 220 grit sandpaper, I used some fine steel wool, and look at that. They turned out amazing. So don't feel that you have to go out and buy all new hardware. Since I was turning this drafting table into a workstation, I wanted to have a place to hang my tools and accessories. So I found these clips from the Dollar Tree, and I can hold my hammer, I can hold my speed square, and I love it. And after I removed that hardware, I was left with these ugly little holes. So I took some wood glue, some paper that matches the orange in the wheels, and just glued it in there. Ta-da! I absolutely love it. I'm glad that I really went with my gut and decided to strip it, sand it, and keep it natural and really try to show the grain of the oak. It looks fantastic. Be sure to come back to my blog because once I get the rest of the garage set up, you'll see the power tools that are going to be on top of this. And I'll be able to wheel it around. I don't have to heave-ho this thing across the garage. So if you like this project, give it a thumbs up and I'll see you next project. And be sure to subscribe because you know, I like subscribers. I really do. So go ahead and hit that button below and subscribe and I'll see you next project.